Hey, good evening, Bridgeway family. My name is Phil Van Gelder. I have the privilege of serving as the chairman of the board at Bridgeway Christian Academy. I'm so glad you joined us tonight. We've got a lot of important things to talk about, and we won't take too much of your time, but we're really grateful that you've joined us. Before we really dive in, can we just open with a word of prayer, and then we'll go over just a handful of the exciting things God is doing in our lives. Heavenly Father, thanks so much for the opportunity to gather here tonight. For the people, the teachers, the students, the staff that pour so much of their life into this school and the impact and difference it makes in the kingdom. I pray that you join our conversation now, surround us with your presence, help us to understand what it is that you have in store for us, that you'd give us discernment, help us to see as you see, to do as you say, and to trust in your word, Lord. In your name, amen. So the point of tonight, would have loved to have everybody in the same room, but things have changed a little bit since we last met. The reason I called this a family meeting is because of what happens at our house, or what I have the privilege of experiencing pretty much on a nightly basis. In a little bit of a fashion bigger than this, we gather around a table. My wife and daughters, we get a chance to sit down, and usually at the end of the day, we're kind of doing a wrap-up of how did things go. And I will admit, at one point we called this our high and low. And so we'd go around the table and we'd kind of hold our nightly our nightly family meeting. And we'd say, okay, what was your high and what was your low? And these roses are not just a prop, it's actually something I want to use to communicate a message to you tonight. Several years ago, we changed that and we started talking about what was your rose for the day? And you say, well, what does that really mean? We had to explain it to kind of give the three-part metaphor. And what that is you have your stem, you have your thorn, and you have your petals, the actual flower. And so we started using that analogy. And so we'll sit down, we'll have dinner, and then we'll go one by one and we'll share what was your rose for the day? What were all the different parts? How did God grow you? How did he challenge you? And what are the blessings and the things that he's doing right in your life? So I want to walk you through just a little bit of that. I know that what our world had once been has kind of been turned upside down. And so I want to start tonight to just talk a little bit like a conversation, like we really are gathered around the kitchen table, and what's going on in your personal life, what's going on in the life of our school, and how that's affected us. So to give you an idea, you've got those three elements we talked about. What is the rose in your life, the thorns, the stem, the petals? God's going to use each one of these to develop character within us, and we can have faith in him because we can trust his character that he's shown us throughout the Bible. So the thorns being the challenges and difficulties we encounter, the stem, obviously, the ways we're growing, the way we're maturing, the way that our life path has actually set something out in front of us, and the petals. So what are the positive outcomes? What are the things that God's trying to teach us in each one of these moments that really we should find as positive? And I know there hasn't been a whole lot to be positive about lately, but we're going to cover a bunch of that tonight. So the first up, let's talk about the bad stuff first, right? Good news, bad news, let's start with that. COVID-19 has messed up what we once thought to be normal. Everything we anticipated out of life got turned upside down. It's changed what we found to be urgent and what we thought was important. It's kind of reprioritized those things, whether it's in your personal life or here at the school. We've had to adapt quite a bit. And when you talk about what it is we've gone through, trust me, we've got 3 little ones at home, and we're trying to do a bunch of multitasking. How do I educate? How do I still be a parent at the same time? How do I get my job done? How do I get stuff done around the house? And we can't go anywhere. There's no real outlet to try and break that up. And so what we have been doing is not really anything related to remote learning, digital learning, hybrid learning, online learning. It almost makes me think of a quick analogy. Does anybody remember this? This was a really popular product about 10, 15 years ago. They called it the Hollywood 48-hour diet. Now, you think, okay, well, what is the real outcome that I'm trying to accomplish here? Basically, I've got an end goal that's coming up way faster than I expected it to, and I've got to get to a result quickly. So they came out with this product, and I never tried this, so I can't really speak to its validity or if it actually works. But the whole idea is this is all you consume for 48 hours, and it promises, or at least teases you with the idea you can lose 10 pounds in 48 hours. That is what they call a crash diet. It's not sustainable, it's not realistic, it's not socially proper. There's nothing you can do to go to dinner with somebody and use this. And I would analogize the way we have had to adapt to learning as COVID-19 learning. Whether you're a public school, a private school, at Bridgeway, it doesn't matter. what we have had to do is totally turn things upside down. It's unrealistic, and it's frankly just a quick Band-Aid to ultimately get to what we need to do. So what we've been doing is none of those things. I know everybody has had to step up. Teachers have had to go above and beyond, working all kinds of hours. Administrators are on the phone virtually 24 hours a day. You as parents have had to step in and take a critical role in your children's education. One you probably didn't sign up for, one you weren't prepared for, probably had no training on, and learning while you're in stride, changing the tires, going 70 miles an hour, whatever you may want to call it. And I think what probably compounds the element of the pain in all of that is the uncertainty that still lies ahead. And that's not just related to your child's education, but it could be related to family health, it could be related to jobs, it could be related to finance, it could be related to a number of different things, but the fact of the matter is, there is no certainty in your life of what's really coming ahead, and that can be a real strain on your family. The next one we're talking about is the STEM. So we've got the negative parts out of the way. The STEM is, what is God doing to grow us? How have we changed recently? How has He matured our walk with Him? Are we trusting in Him more as those challenges come about? So the first one is that I'm not that advanced, but what we're doing with technology as a school is pretty incredible. It is truly a blessing, but it has caused us to learn a lot in a short period of time. Some may be welcomed and some not so much, and it doesn't come without hitch. Obviously, there was a lot of apprehension about doing this tonight, that we may or may not be able to pull it off, that we may or may not be able to actually bring you the message we wanted to bring you with the format that we ultimately desired. But we've got faith and trust He's going to deliver us. Secondly, we've got a reliance on His timing. There is no ability for us to predict when this is going to lift, how it's going to lift, if things ultimately change in the way that we think they will. We've lost control of things that we once thought were completely within our grasp. And we've got to be able to recognize that. We've got to be able to realize that when things get back to normal are ultimately up to Him. And we just have to trust in His process, that He's growing our patience amidst that. And also our resources. Times are tough. We don't know how long that will last. We don't know when we'll emerge from that. But I can tell you as a school, organizationally, we'll talk about this in a few minutes, we're doing everything we can possibly to cut unnecessary expenses and prepare ourselves that if should this be a long-term situation, we're prepared and we're ready for that. And He's challenged us to be creative. I think one of the tools and one of the blessings that God's given us is the ability to think beyond our circumstances, differentiates us from the animals, right? We've got the ability to reason, to figure problems out, and ultimately get to a better situation. All right, so let's get to the positive stuff. We've talked about the challenges, the way that God stretched us and grown us, at least in our own personal lives, and some of what's going on here at the school. The rows, the positive things, what is God actually bringing? We could reference it as fruit, but in this case, we'll reference a flower. It's the awareness and connection to our kids. I don't know about you, but when I come across somebody in life, typically the first thing that comes out of both of our mouths is, I'm super busy. I've got places to go, I've got things to do, I don't have time for all this extra stuff. And it's almost a competition. When God strips all that from you, He forces you to recognize that you're not in control, but that He is going to give you a gift in that process and help you realize, we've probably seen more people in our neighborhood taking walks at night, playing board games, spending time as a family, doing things that would have otherwise been a distraction to something else that we were more concerned about or prioritizing over the opportunity to spend it with our children. Time to connect with one another and have a deeper understanding. So one of the things that I've seen, countless Zoom meetings that have occurred over the last several weeks of families that don't ever talk to one another, all of a sudden being connected in a virtual way, in a real way, that has made a tremendous impact. I would argue at this point, even though we can't see each other, we have had more interaction as a school body than I've seen in the last 5 years that we've been here. And it's a really neat thing to experience, not just from a distance, but also intimately, the board meeting virtually, having calls to parents virtually, all those things have been powerful resources. Again, that it really has been a byproduct that we didn't expect from this process. And God's made us awake to things that we thought were necessary that ultimately aren't. Things that we thought were important or we thought were urgent that we had misprioritized. He has helped kind of eliminate those distractions and refocus us to the things He ultimately wants to do in our lives. And you can tell me, okay, that all this is great. I'm really excited that you've prepared these things and you've told me all this stuff I already know. Phil, that hasn't helped me at all. And I think the thing that was really important for us tonight that we want to talk about is not just establishing the reality or the situational analysis to say, okay, this is the situation we find ourselves in. How do we actually remedy this? What are the tangible steps that the school is taking to fix and address the actual issue as it relates to educating our kids? We can't control what's going on outside these walls, but we can have a powerful impact on what is happening here. A special recognition to everybody on the board. They spent countless hours, numerous phone calls. I can't even tell you the amount of time we've spent in prayer trying to drill down and say, God, give us a spirit of discernment, give us a heart of understanding to realize where it is you have us going and the things that we can do to make a tangible impact. So I want to talk about some of those things right now that I'm going to call watering and pruning. So one of the weirdest things that I learned about roses at one point, really any bush for that matter, is you can't just let it keep growing. Eventually, you do have to make cuts. You do have to make trims in order to ultimately get the best outcome from it. And so we're going to go through here and talk a little bit about some things that we're doing to improve the situation given the circumstances that we've got. So we mentioned in a note that went out a few weeks ago that Jennifer, along with Joy Hodges, is going to be assuming kind of a joint staff team effort to take over the control of the school. Jennifer will become our acting head of school in the fall. She'll probably assume those responsibilities coming up here in the summer, but Jennifer has been with us for over 15 years, knows things in and out, has done a tremendous job with the digital learning experience. We're incredibly excited about her taking that over and can't wait to see what God does through that. We've extended our agreement in partnership with Bridgeway Church. We began as a ministry of the church. And we want to make sure that we are launching their ministry into a whole nother stratosphere that they've not realized before. And likewise, they're coming alongside us to make sure that we're continuing to move those efforts in a positive direction. So we've curtailed non-essential expenditures. And that may just be a fancy way of saying budget cuts. Let's be honest. Again, if we're sitting around the kitchen table, if times are tough, we have to figure out how to make it through that together. And so we are cutting things out that weren't necessary. I think sometimes you have the opportunity to get down to a fighting weight and really address the needs versus the wants. It helps prepare you for when a rebound occurs and we can actually get to a point that we're delivering excellence, right? I mean, that's what we're always focused to in terms of our output. The flexible options regarding tuition collection, Joy and the whole team in the business office has done a tremendous job providing your families, other families with the opportunity to be able to afford to stay here. One of the things that is probably the most painful thing to watch is that a parent wants their student here, and without effort, they walk away not realizing that there are ways we can partner with them to make sure they afford the opportunity to come to a school where they're being fed Christ on a daily basis. We have extended your enrollment deadline. This was a big thing that people were really concerned about. Obviously, our meeting tonight on the 30th, we didn't want it to feel like there was any kind of implied crunch with May 1st deadline. We have pushed that back 2 additional weeks. So you'll have till the 15th to make a decision, as you're probably evaluating a lot of different things in your life related to not just school, but jobs, if it's relocation, if it's finances, whatever it may be. We're going to push that back to provide a little bit more bandwidth. Facility preparation, so one of the things, it kind of goes hand in hand with the next one, sanitation practices. This building is 20 years old, which both presents opportunities and challenges. We are looking at making some investments in the building, ensuring that we're keeping up with not just the maintenance elements of it, but to get out in front of things, taking a proactive walk of the campus, making sure that we're familiar with capital expenditures that are coming up, and preparing a budget to be able to respond to those things if and when they do happen, whether planned or unplanned, that we are ready for those. So we're making a detailed analysis of what is actually in front of us here over the next several years to be able to prepare for what's ahead. I'll mention the sanitation practices again. We are adopting a few advanced metrics on that to make sure that when your student does come to school, that we're prepared to actually make that happen in the safest possible way that the state and the government allows. We have engaged a professional fundraising organization. So I know that on an annual basis, we're talking about annual fund, indirect, redirect. Those opportunities are tremendous gifts to our school. You get people from both outside and inside giving to the organization. But what really would create a tailwind for us is to be able to engage on a professional level, looking for corporate sponsorships, foundations, grant writing, things that I'll be first to admit, Bridgeway as an organization has not done a tremendous job of engaging at those levels. And we need to change that. We need to recognize that there are dollars out there that could help go towards extending God's kingdom through the education process that's going on here. We are going to invest in some marketing efforts. We have a virtual tour that we've completed, which gives somebody the ability to experience our building without actually coming in the doors, which is kind of difficult to realize because most of the time once somebody walks in, they're sold from that first visit. And because of the fact of what's going on right now, we know we can't do that. We want to make sure that we give them as close of an experience to that as possible. So we have a full digital platform that'll be uploaded to the website. We'll be able to share that link as well. So if you have family members, friends, anybody that would be interested in potentially joining the school or taking a tour, and we just can't get in the building, this is going to give you an opportunity to show them that. We are preparing to have a website refresh. That'll occur probably later this summer. We didn't want to change things too much as we finish out this spring semester, knowing there's a lot that's already in the mix in terms of digital learning and remote access to content. So we're going to keep that the same as it is right now, and we'll ultimately be changing that coming up. The next one, added technological professional development. So the teachers, as much as they know their curriculum, they know their students, and they know how to deliver content, doing it in a way that they've never done it before is a learning experience for everybody. And so we want to make an investment in those teachers. I think we took a survey about a year ago, and we asked you guys as parents and as consumers, what would be one thing that you would want to see of 7 or 8 things? What would be one at the top that you would want to see extra dollars invested in? It was in teacher development. So we want to make sure that we're acknowledging that, we're investing back in the people that are ultimately feeding your children on a daily basis. And the last one is making substantial technological investments. I want to be the first person to tell you, and hopefully the last, we are 100% preparing to be back in the building in the fall. That's up to the government. I can't make any predictions about that. I can't tell you with certainty that that is going to be what happens. But what I can promise you is in the event that we are not allowed, that we get to a point where the government says school buildings are not allowed to be open, I can tell you we'll be more prepared than we were when all this hit, when that 48-hour Hollywood crash diet approach hit. It's going to be different next time around. We're working with the administration, with the curriculum team, to make an investment that would lay on top of the RenWeb solution that we have today, that would really make your experience as a user, as a parent, as a quasi-instructor, much, much simpler than it has been in the past. And frankly, I've made countless phone calls. I've met with previous board members, other heads of school, and parents that have their children going to other environments. Bridgeway has done an outstanding job in being able to deliver what is normal as best as possible through a digital platform. And I can tell you that compared to the rest, you should be a satisfied customer for what that's worth. And if we can't get back in the building in the fall, everybody's choices are going to be limited. And we hope that you continue to choose Bridgeway because that partnership is not just one for this year or another year after that. It's an eternal investment in your child's salvation and ultimately where things end up eternally. So these are some tangible items I wanted to provide you. And I know that I'm going to kind of stick on this for just one more minute. One thing that has been time and time again brought up to me that's really, really important is that idea of will we be back in the building in the fall? And I want to be able to sit here, I want to be able to stand here and tell you with 100% certainty that that's what's going to happen. And I can't do that. I don't know that anybody can. None of us know exactly how this is going to play out. We're preparing for both equations. Should we get back in the building, it'll be business as usual. Should we not, we're preparing with alternative plans to make sure that that's a smoother process. But here's what I can promise you. Bridgeway Christian Academy has been led by God's decisions and His direction for 22 years. Every single time we have needed God to show up, He has done exactly that. And there have been some lean years. With saving you the details, there have been times when we shouldn't have survived. There have been times when we shouldn't have made it. And for some reason, God continues to deliver when we need Him most. And this is a time for our school that I feel like He hopes to do that as well. He plans to do that as well. And it's not just because of some feeling I have, but because of something He's shown. We talk a lot about the difference between faith and hope. We can have faith in God's plan because he shows us his character. He has shown us his character throughout the entire Bible. And so we can have trust in his character. And we can have hope for the future of what we believe that we think he's going to do. And there's one way I want to exhibit that to you. I want to tell you a story. 18 months ago, the leadership of our school and the leadership of another school started having conversations. That conversation was around best practices, curriculum, delivery of education, unique approaches. Basically, as we say all the time, we're a school, we're an environment of continual improvement. We want to deliver excellence, not just the standards, but excellence. So these two schools started getting together and sharing those ideas. And we didn't know ultimately what was going to come of it. And as things went along, we started having more and more serious conversations about what happens inside the walls. What investment from parents do you have? What are your mission statements look like? What does your vision statement look like? What are the goals that you have for a student when they come in as a kindergartner and you take them all the way through? What do those things look like? And it was amazing what God unfolded in front of us. The expression I like to use is God had us stepping on all kinds of rakes. And we were on the highway going down thinking, this is great, but why does it feel like there's something more here? And I'll be direct. We started having conversations about joining together two different schools into one. And when that idea was first presented and thrown out, I think the immediate reaction was, well, we're not ready for that. I don't know that that's the right thing. And I think we did a great job of talking about all the ways that it won't work. We looked for every off-ramp we could. We looked for every opportunity to say, this isn't the right thing to do. And God kept closing every off-ramp we tried to go down. And he kept bringing us back to saying, you need to trust me, you need to have faith. You're standing at the edge of the Red Sea. You need to step out in faith and understand, I will deliver my will in this, and I will deliver the people at the right time in the right circumstances. That school we've been talking to is Legacy Community Academy. And just a few months ago, after 18 months of debate, of discussion, and countless hours of prayer, both boards have voted to move forward and unify the two organizations this fall in a totally new program. This school will provide a K-12 format. It will provide a hybrid learning format, a traditional 5-day learning format. It will provide a larger community for us to be able to share in what God's doing in each of our lives. It will give a tremendous impact to what we want to do in the community, to not just neighbors and friends, to parents, but to the extended community at large that may never walk through the doors of this building. Legacy will be joining us this fall in a brand new venture. We want to change the way that people see traditional and hybrid learning that can exist under one roof, that can exist in one environment that creates a dynamic and powerful product like no one else is doing. Now, I could go on and tell you about a lot of different bullet points. And you're probably sitting there thinking about a million questions of, what's my uniform going to look like? And do I still have the same teacher? Or is this different than what I signed up for? And we're going to answer all those questions, as you should be thinking about those. But I want to do something right now that I think may tell the story just a little bit better. If you would, watch this video.
My name is Suzanne Phillips, and currently I serve in the role as co-chair of the board. I also am a teacher here, I'm a parent here and have been, and I'm a co-founder of LCA.
I'm Jennifer Gasly. I've been a part of Bridgeway Christian Academy for about 15 years now. I had lots of different roles. When I first started, I was teaching music and computer classes, and over time became a middle school assistant principal, and then currently I'm the associate head of school in charge of academics and instruction. Been blessed to also be a parent here. I have 2 sons, and both of my sons were at Bridgeway and came through school here.
In 2010, this was Bristol Oaks Academy, And it was a school that was a non-traditional school that was really more co-op type classes for a homeschool community. I was teaching at the time for that community, a high school Bible study class, and in doing so, started to ask the question, what could this look like if there was a real vision and mission behind it? At the time, it was really just a place to offer great classes to families in a central location as a community, but there really wasn't a pointed vision or mission.
My husband and I had moved, and I had every intention. My older son, at that point, we put him in public school, and he was there through first grade. And one of my neighbors said, hey, they've started this brand new school called Bridgeway Christian Academy, and I think he would make a great computer and music teacher there. And so private Christian school had never been on our radar, and so we checked it out. And as a mom, I was completely sold out at that moment.
The mission at Legacy Community Academy is to partner with the family to develop servant leaders through intentional education and community. So in other words, the education and community, they're a vessel to do what the mission really is.
Our mission and vision to offer Christ-centered education through excellence.
And to shape culture, we just very much believe that you're either being shaped or you're shaping. And so we want students to be grounded in who Jesus is and who they are as an individual and how God has gifted them, and also in the way people are thinking in this world, so that they can be shapers in whatever that mission field is that God calls them to as individuals.
For prospective families, when they walk in, it's really twofold what we want them to experience. First of all, just to realize that this environment, it is a Christ-centered environment, and when you walk in, that our teachers and our staff, that we're going to love your child through the lens that is Jesus. We want to see your child, we want to know your child, because that's how Jesus sees us, and that's first and foremost. And then the second part is the education part of it. We educate students so well, and that's our priority. Is we're a school and we want to educate, but we do that through the lens that is the Bible. And so when a family comes in, that's what we want them to experience.
When God kind of put that mission together through us, and we prayed for hours and days over that mission, we knew what it was, but what's the order? It's partnering with the parents before we get to developing servant leaders.
When you choose Bridgeway, we become a partner with you to pull off the education piece of it. And that's our part of it. And so within the school day, it's our job to educate and teach the child, but we want to partner with you and be an extension of the home. And we want your involvement as far as that goes into supporting our teachers, praying for our teachers, helping us at home to solidify the things that we're sending home. Again, it is truly a partnership with the parents. We plan our biblical integration. We look at every unit, every subject, and look at, okay, so what does God say about Bible? What does God say about history? And there are tangible things in God's word that you can weave into with intentionality into a lesson. And so, for example, when you are teaching wholes and fractions within, Jesus is 3 and 1. And how does that make sense from a math standpoint? It doesn't, but you can weave that into the Bible. God is concrete and math is concrete. There is no ambiguity with Jesus. And so that's a point that we can make to our students. 1 + 1 is always going to be 2. You can always put your faith and trust in Jesus because he is never changing. Math is never changing.
When you talk about math, 1 + 1 will always equal 2. It is steadfast, it is the truth, it is faithful, and so is Jesus. I mean, that is a picture of what steadfast, who he is. When you look at communication and you're looking at literature or something in language arts, I mean, the entire Bible is a story. He is the author and finisher of our faith. About 18 months ago, an idea was just sort of presented about a what if. The immediate response was, wow, I don't even know what to do with that. And after about a week, it made enough sense to at least pay attention. And as we have talked and kind of met, so many of the things that we've dreamed about, all the way from the co-working space to families who are saying, we love a small community. We wish there were just a few more kids in all of the classes and grades and that sort of thing. I mean, just that alone, to have like-minded families and like-hearted families that are looking at their families saying, yes, we want them to be educated very, very well, and we want them to be prepared for this world, but we want them to know Jesus.
I think the opportunity for this joint venture, it is so incredible because, again, it allows us an opportunity to offer to families and to students different learning environments. And I think that's what's key, and that's what we're finding out. Not every student learns in the exact same way.
I would say for LCA, and speaking on behalf of LCA from the beginning up until this minute, I can't even list the number of prayers that this would be an answer to.
Somebody once asked me what I thought one of the things we could do to help to grow Bridgeway Christian Academy. And I said, I would love to see us offer a hybrid model of education. And the day that I answered that question, I really feel like it was something that God had put on my heart.
What we didn't dream, that I think this just opens up opportunity for, is wonder if there's a family who one child is in sports or they're an actor at the age of 10 and they really need a hybrid type schedule to walk out what God has laid on the heart of the family or the child. But then wonder if there's another child that structure is really important and 5 days a week would be a blessing.
So I think one of the greatest opportunities for us to grow is to look at all the resources out there and decide what works best to be able to teach students who have learning differences and different learning styles. Not every student learns best in a traditional classroom, so how do we mix that up? Not every student learns best sitting in a 5-day-a-week all-day classroom. So what can we do as a school to embrace and bring that into our school, as well as offer things to families that just need different learning environments?
The thing that I think is fascinating, having walked through this as a parent and then also kind of from the outside looking in, is it's fascinating always to me that we forget that older students in a community or family, the older students are with the younger students. And so it's beautiful to me when I see a high school student high five a third grader in the hall and they really know each other, and those third graders look up with these huge eyes and they can't believe that they were noticed or anyone spent time with them. And when we see that during lunch, that the older kids are playing basketball with the little ones and they don't have to. It's not mandated. So this sense of community, this sense of what it really feels like to be in a family with all ages and stages represented in a small space where people really, really do. All of our graduates, it's amazing when they get ready to graduate, we interview them. I would say 99.9% of them, when you say, what was your experience at LCA like? The number one thing they say is, I was known.
You know, when God calls us to come together, again, He takes each of us and our gifts and brings them together for His glory and for His kingdom. And I think that we're exactly modeling what Christ is asking us to do by bringing these two schools together and taking the best of both schools and then being able to offer that under one umbrella. I think that it's the perfect example and model of what Christ means when He says, I want the body to come together.
Pretty exciting video. Thanks for doing that, ladies. I appreciate both of you. We obviously wanted to gather collectively tonight to talk to you parents directly, but also to share a little bit with our new partners, if you will. We've got a few from Legacy here tonight. So I want to welcome Suzanne Phillips, who's a board member from Legacy. You already heard from her a little bit in the video. Elizabeth LeBon, who's the principal at Legacy on a daily basis. So a little bit more boots on the ground, we can get that perspective. Not just hearing some tactical things tonight, but also perhaps sharing in just a little bit of the emotion of what's coming up next. And then I'll start with Jennifer. If you would give our parents a little bit of an idea, there's probably a ton of thoughts, a ton of anxiety, nerves, energy that's running through them right now. What would you tell them to expect that is going to be different in the fall? What should I expect to have changed when I walk in the doors?
Sure, that's a great question. First of all, families, I just want to encourage you to, and when you're thinking about this fall, I want you to just to be excited about the educational opportunities that we're going to now have in this building that you've known as Bridgeway. We have had a phenomenal education program that we, as you've heard us always say, excellence in Christ-centered education. But now we're going to be able to offer another model for your student that may better meet their educational needs, but it's going to take place in this same building that you've come to. You're going to still experience the teachers that you know and love, the staff that you've created community with, but when you step on here, we're going to have brand new families and brand new students that are like-minded with the families that we have, but we're going to have a new educational model for those students that it works best for. And so that's what's going to be a change, but it's such an exciting change for us. And I could not be more thrilled to be able to come together and offer that this fall.
So you're telling me that as a parent, we may actually have enough kids to play 5-on-5 at recess?
Absolutely.
Just maybe?
Absolutely.
There's improvements all over, right?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Very cool. All right, so Elizabeth, you'd probably say something different to your parents about what will or won't change. But I know you've been a part of the conversation almost from the beginning in terms of ideas and feasibility and all that. What excites you about this?
Sure.
I mean, obviously your body will go through a change as well, right? Like your parents, your community are going to go through a change, but what is it that excites you about what's coming up this fall?
I love that for my community, what we get to say is that we will still have the teachers and the systems that we love, but for us, we have prayed for a facility. Our facility has forced us to be creative and innovative, but it has been a distraction. And we now have this opportunity. We could look at this pause as either a roadblock or a toll booth. And I think for paying the price of a little bit of change, we have this opportunity to put that creative thought, innovation into our system of education, into our classrooms. And that is truly an answered prayer for us.
That's great.
I was just going to say, so you said answered prayer. I'm glad you used that phraseology because Suzanne, I think you mentioned this a couple times in the video. You said, I couldn't tell you the number of answered prayers this would deliver for us. As somebody that's seen it from day one, you know, whether there were 2 kids enrolled or 200 kids enrolled, you've seen it start from the ground up.
Right.
What does this feel like for you? Does it feel a passing of the baton, a fruition of God's idea that He laid on your heart and several families' hearts years ago? What does this feel like in terms of energy and inertia as to what's next?
Yeah, it's so exciting because when Legacy, I mentioned this a little bit in the video, but when Legacy began, it began from a seed that was called Bristol Oaks Academy, which was Bristol Science Academy. So Legacy was really the fruit of some other labor that went in before us, and we took that and grew it into something that had a vision and mission and some real intention around it. So for me, from the beginning, and I think probably for Elizabeth, it's exciting to see that this is how God works. I mean,
Yes.
God grows things, right? He doesn't change, but He changes us and He changes things. And culture's changing. Education doesn't look the same as it did 10 years ago, and it's not going to look the same in 10 more years. And so this idea that we can offer one model that has different modes and be able to grow even more modes potentially, that to me is such a picture of God working, and that we don't major on the minors, we major on the majors. And the major for both of these communities, as we've discovered over the past 18 months, is that Christ-centered education, Jesus being at the center, the whole child, reaching the whole child and not just their brain, has been such the heartbeat of both of these organizations. But what's exciting is this offers an opportunity to reach the whole family. We have families in the same way that, this is the right model, the hybrid's the right model for many, but maybe one child needs a little more structure. And so to be able to offer that to a family within a Christ-centered community and environment is just powerful.
Well, and Phil, one of the other biggest changes for our body is the number of families that at 8th grade it ends. And
I was just going to ask you about that. So
Exactly. No,
I
I mean, it ends, and I know there's so many families that have said, oh, I just wish that we had a high school. I wish that my child could stay in that environment. And we now have that opportunity for our families. And so I just think that that's so exciting. We always have said we are a high school preparatory school. And so in that mode, we are still preparing our students for high school, but they can now stay in this facility, in this building, with this people, with this community, and experience something different that they're not going to get in your typical high school, something different, but it's going to take place under this roof with this same community, again, being Christ-centered and being able to stay in this community that we have created with our students and with our families.
I want to just kind of close or wrap up with this real quickly. In the video, Suzanne, we heard you talk about the power of when a really young child, let's call it like a second or third grade, sees their buddy that's an 11th or 12th grader in the hall. So that is a new environment for our families, right? Having high schoolers around and being able to, I'll call it generational wisdom. I don't know how much wisdom's in a high schooler, but generational wisdom, or at least influence in their fellow classmates that are grades and grades below them. Elizabeth, can you tell us just a little bit, what is it like watching that interact on a daily basis? Like, I think a 7-year-old and a 17-year-old, not that they're going to really cross paths in all that common of an occurrence.
Absolutely. For me, it's one of my very favorite parts about having the ages together. It gives our high school students the chance to practice being servant leaders. And they have the opportunity to build that relational equity over time just by being present. And the ministry of presence is how we start changing lives. And the care and tenderness that they show to our lower school students is incredible. And I think this just gives them more opportunity to walk that out and practice it.
That's great.
Any final thoughts, Suzanne?
Just even to speak to that a little bit, I think there's a level of accountability that comes as well. I
It's
mean,
true.
when we've worked hard to have that type of partnership, and for the older ones, even in PE, or engaging the little ones at recess with their PE class together, and I mean kindergartners. And when you see that, and when an older child sees a young child look at them and knows that they are admiring and following it, there is a level of accountability that comes that's natural, and I think and powerful. And lastly to that, I think one of the things that I experienced with my own kids, because that's not something I thought about when we started this whole shebang, was that it's what a family looks like. It's not overly typical for 500 14-year-olds to be in a room together. I mean, that's not really life. That's a way to do school. That's great. But when we talk about a family or a real community, it involves different ages and stages, and it's how you learn that people are. How do you learn and how do you walk within a community, within a family, and to watch that weave through, lower school all the way up through graduation, and have little ones actually come to graduation to watch someone. I mean, it gives me cold chills. It's a true picture of a body,
Right.
and a family. So it's been a powerful thing.
So this fall will be exciting. It will not be without bumps.
It will not.
There will be challenges, there will be headaches, there will be disagreements. But I think the thing that has impressed me over the last 18 months is when we put our selfish pride aside, and when we put our personal agenda aside, and we do truly realize that God is telling us, this is my will, and I will have it done. When we truly recognize that, there's so much that changes. So I think the only thing I can probably do right now is just close us in prayer, and then we'll wrap up our vision night.
That's great.
Heavenly Father, thanks for not just these ladies gathered here on the stage tonight, but also for the families that are tuning in, that are watching. All the thoughts running through their head, Lord, they're valid, they're warranted, and they're understood. Surround them with your peace. Help them realize that you have gone before us, just as you did, and you've exemplified in this entire process, that we can trust in your character, we can have faith in that, and we can have a hope for something even greater. I pray that you would help us to humbly submit ourselves to your will, and that you would deliver us in the true fashion that only you can do. Thank you again for everyone involved in this, and we give it all the glory to you in your name. Amen. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We hope this family meeting was beneficial. We couldn't be more excited about what God has in store. We'll be in touch with a lot more information coming up real soon.